Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are going to welcome Kris back. It's Hadia. HadiaLoving.com is my webpage. I invite you to go on there and sign up for your sessions. I am a spiritual counselor, life coach, fulfillment coach, and I help my clients create the life that they want through self-loving, self-caring, self-nurturing, and letting go of everything that doesn't work for you. And Kris and I had a great time and I invited him back. And today we're going to talk about transitioning from being in school into the working world and being a young adult and the challenges and the good things about it as well. Kris, will you introduce yourself and let people know where they can find you?
Hello, everyone. My name is Kris. I am Hadia's wonderful guest today. And I'm also an artist. So if you want to check out any of my artwork, you can find it at LICH_KEELA on Instagram.
Thank you, Kris. Yay. And you are my wonderful guest. So you start off and the difference between now and then, when I was young and we were transitioning from, like when I graduated high school, I had to go door to door to find a job. Now everything's online. You fill out application and it's like, what is that like? You don't meet people, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just throw your what do you call it, your resume, your resume into the internet world. The abyss. I'm like, okay. So when I was in high school, I went to I grew up in a small city and everybody worked at that pizza place. Pizza place. And it was the happening pizza place because after school sports, where there was baseball, soccer, football, everybody went to have pizza. So it was like the thing to be at, the place to be at, and the place to work. So I remember when I was 15 and a half, I would go in every week and the manager's name at the time was Sam. And the place was called Sam's Pizza. He didn't own it. He just ran it. And I'd be like, Sam, you're hiring me. Like, how old are you? Like 15 now, because as soon as you turn 16, come back. And I would just go. I constantly went in. And on the day I turned 16, I'm like, Sam, I'm 16 today. He goes, here's an apron. And I didn't even fill out an application. And I remember they wanted to pay me after 2 weeks. And they're like, Hadia, did you ever fill out an application or, your tax? I'm like, no, what is that?
I'm 16. What is that?
Exactly. I didn't know what a resume was because I just knew I wanted to work there because that was the thing to do.
Yeah.
Like all the kids hung out there. It was just the funnest place to be.
Yeah.
And it was walking distance, so I could walk to my job and walk home. And so now it's different. It's like even young kids, very rarely young kids start working at 16, right? In your generation.
More rarely, I would say.
Yeah, like in my generation, I started really working when I was 12 for money. I started babysitting and I babysat all of it. Like I grew up with a family that works a lot. They're workaholics. So our work ethics are different. It was always like, make your own money, because when you have your own money, you have freedom and you can do whatever you want in your life. And I remember I picked up on that early because when I was 12, I wanted my mom to buy me this certain outfit. She's like, no. And I was like, what? And then I was like, oh, well, if I had my money, she can't say no because it's my money.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to start babysitting because if I want an outfit, I want to buy it. So that was the motivator one of the motivators when I was 12, like that freedom, the financial freedom gave me freedom to pick out my own clothes. So how is it in your generation? Like, when did you and your peers start getting, oh, I need to have money? Because like, I think your generation was more taking, I'm Gen X, your generation is what? Do you know?
Not really. I don't keep up to date with that kind of stuff.
Are you, I think you're
But I was
maybe,
born in 95, so in the audience, if
are you,
you'll know if you know.
exactly. Um, I think it was more like just be a kid and have fun in school, right? So share with us like your transitional experiences from being at school, being a child, and then being like, oh, well, now, even like college, I think it was all about college. People in my generation went to college so they could make money because they had these huge student loans as well. And not that your generation doesn't, some people do, some people don't. But more parents started saving up for their children's education in your generation than mine.
Yeah, and even more so than that, just pushing their children to go to college, regardless of whether they had the resources for it or not.
Yeah. And scholarships, like all that was easier to reach. So you want to share your experience?
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't have a huge need for money. I've never placed money very highly on my own values. That's just who I am. I care about other things. So until there was like absolutely a necessity, I think I would do odd jobs here and there and like chores and stuff to make a few bucks to maybe if I wanted to go get some snacks or something, but like never very much. But it was not until I believe the summer, or rather I guess that's not actually true. Because I think it was my sophomore year. And this was less so me looking for something and more so just taking the advantage of an opportunity. I was in a business course in my high school. And one day the business teacher, who also owned an accounting firm in the city, asked, "Hey, does anybody want to do some work for me?" And everybody kind of hesitates. And I just raised my hand because I was like, that sounds cool. Like, I want to know what you do. And he's like, and by the way, you get paid for it. Everybody else in the class raises their hand. He's like, Kris raised his hand first, so he gets the job. So I worked that job such that I could pay to go visit Hawaii for a month during that summer. Because it had been a few years since we had moved away from Hawaii and I wanted to go back and see my friends, since I hadn't seen them and hardly talked to them at all. So that was a big trip for me. However, that aside, I didn't really start working consistently until the summer and kind of the semester previous to that summer, right before I went to college, because you need money to go to college. Not that it was going to pay for it, but it would at least make a small dent.
Yeah.
Um, and so I had tried a few times over the years previous to that to use, like online portals to like submit applications or walk into a place and give them my resume. And it was not very effective. Interestingly enough, even though we have so much more accessibility to put ourselves out there through the internet, it doesn't make it any more effective than just walking into a place and talking to someone, ideally the hiring manager or somebody who has some power, and putting a face in front of them and building some sort of connection. That, in my experience, has made, I mean, the success rate between trying to apply online and just walking into a place and talking to someone is night and day.
I agree with you. And also referrals.
Yeah, and referrals. If you know somebody,
Yeah,
that makes everything.
that's the best thing. Like the times I've gotten jobs, I would call everyone and their mother, like literally, and be like, I'm looking for work. Do you know anyone who's hiring? And do you know anyone who knows the hiring people? And the last job I had, which was years ago, I was in school again. I always like to learn. And I was just sharing in class on our break, I'm looking for a job. And this girl's like, oh, my company's hiring. I think you'd be good at it. And she referred me. And she got $500 for referring me, and they hired me. And that's how I got that job. Most jobs, it's always like just talking to people, because like you said, I also still find the internet is not effective. And if you don't know people, it's harder. It's usually people hire people that they know.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's awesome. So continue. I'm sorry. I know I interrupt, but it's, we're flowing. We're flowing.
Yeah. So that's I mean that's sort of sums up my experience with entering work. A lot of my notes that I have here are more so pertaining to like you've finished college and now you're looking for a career or like
Yeah.
a job. But this is a good preamble to that, I think.
Yeah.
But we can go in either direction, whichever you want.
We can't. I just wanted to highlight the importance of knowing someone. If you want to go in an industry, go hang out, go volunteer, really literally talk to everyone and their mother. Like I was the kind of person, if I'm after something, I'd be at the mall and I'd go, do you know about this and that? Like I was out of town, and I saw this bridge and I didn't know where it was, and I'd be like, hey, are you a local? And some people like no, and I'd find like a local. I'm like, where is this? How do you get to it? And that's how it's easier to connect with people and look them in the eye and ask for what you need. And people, in my experience, people love to help. And I've traveled a lot in my life. I know I'm taking it in a slightly different direction, but we'll come back to working. I would meet people and I'd make friends and they would invite me over and we would hang out and it'd just be so much fun. And I'd go stay with them. And so it's same thing with life, is connect with people instead of online. And and last time we talked about online dating, how challenging that is. Getting jobs through online is challenging. It's good to knock on doors.
Yeah, you certainly
Walk
get more
in.
attention that way.
Yeah, like I used to go to places and be like, so how is it working here? What do you think of your manager? Do you like your manager? Like I would interview the employees to see if it's a place that I wanted to be a part of. Because if they don't like their manager, I'm probably not going to like their manager. If the employees are not happy, like why would I? And people would share honestly, like how if they like their job or not. Um, like one time I applied to be a server. I didn't get the job because I just loved the place and I just wanted like a part-time to hang out with people to meet. I moved and I'm like, and I was honest with the manager and I think he didn't like it. I was like, I don't really need a job. I just want 4 hours a week in the afternoon so I can just meet the locals and make friends. And he's like, oh, okay, thanks for coming in. I'm like, what? So anyways, let's go back to how to seek a career after graduating with a degree with letters next to your name.
Yeah.
What is the challenges and the benefits? Because there's also benefits, I think, in trying to find your way after college. So go ahead.
Yeah, so that was actually the first note that I made about this is when you're in school, which is pretty much your entire life prior to the point that you graduate and you're kind of done for a while. You feel like, all right, I've got all the resources I need. I've gotten all the information and experiences I need to make a career. You are no longer on the rails. You have to build a road to keep going. Because nobody's going to do it for you.
Yeah.
And you can build it in any direction. It doesn't have to be the direction that the rails were going on in the first place. It's somewhat easier that way, but there is no guarantee that those rails, once they end, are going to lead you anywhere else other than a piece of paper. So that's, in a way, it is a great freedom because like in my case, I didn't really enjoy what I was doing in college. It was too late and too invested to pivot in any way, so I had to just finish it. But after I was done, I finally got to take a deep breath and say, okay, what do I actually want to do? Because I'm not locked into this. And that comes with its own challenges as well, because if you don't keep going in the direction of the rails and all of the resources that you've built up in your education, you're essentially starting from scratch again. It's like, yes, you have a degree, which is worth something, but it's not necessarily going to get you a good job.
It's true. And maybe someday I'll look it up. There's actually a percentage of every graduating class that ends up doing, and it's a small percentage, even like in doctors and lawyers, they end up actually pursuing that profession, and the rest end up doing other things.
Yeah,
Not,
last time I heard that statistic, I think it was something like only 40% of people who graduate with a degree actually do something in that field. The other
yeah,
60% pivots to something else,
yeah,
whether
like,
they wanted to or not.
yeah. When I was growing up, it was 30%. So 40%, that's, but it's still, it's like, it doesn't matter what you get into learning through your degree. Most people end up doing something else. And I love the question that you asked yourself, what is it that I want to do? That's a great way to start. Like, what do I want? What do I imagine myself to do?
Mhm.
And a great tool that I invite people to use is writing things down, not on your computer, actually getting paper, pen, pencil, crayons, it doesn't matter. Write things down and like free form flow with your thoughts and imagination. Like, what do I want to do? And answer it. What do I want to do? And do that over and over and over again. What is that called? Like on the whiteboard when people brainstorm, like
Yeah.
brainstorm, and nothing is off the books. And what's encouraged to do is like go wild and go crazy. What do I want to do? I want to be a rabbit. I want to be a rabbit keeper. Like it doesn't matter, and something will pop up that you actually feel in your heart, and then you feel guided, and then you'll start noticing that you're getting guided down that path. So how your transformation of what do I want to do? Because I know you mentioned last time you've had different jobs and you thought you should pursue a career. And then you're like, okay, I'm just doing this and I'm going to check it out. And you start getting, in the beginning, you were uncomfortable, but then you start getting comfortable with it. And it's like, okay, I'm a barista right now and I'm doing construction right now. So am I taking you off your path?
No, that's
Okay.
totally accurate. That to a certain degree, I mean, there was one thing that I wanted to do, and in a certain way, I still want to do. I wanted from the time I was a small child up through the rest of my life, I wanted to develop video games because they were
I
my favorite
remember
thing.
that.
Yeah. And so I naively thought that I could tangentially enter this field by getting a degree in computer science programming and work on it from that end. What I found out that the reality of that is that there are thousands of people every year graduating with computer science degrees that want to work on video games. And without the specialized expertise that you get from a specific design school, which are extremely expensive, or if you spent years working on your own personal projects as opposed to going to a university, you don't have a chance.
Mhm.
Not a chance, because the field is just far too competitive. So at that point, I thought, well, while I'm figuring that out, I still have to pay my bills, and I'd rather do something that I don't hate. So let's experiment a little bit. I've always liked coffee, so eventually I got a barista job at a few different places. I like building things, and I had contacts, people that I knew at this construction company that I worked for. Those are probably the better examples of that. A lot of it has just been, I have bills to pay. I need any job I can get.
See, what I love, the key thing that you said that's valuable and it's important to highlight, Kris, is that let's experiment,
Yeah.
have experiences. Like, I think a lot of people, when we're young, we have this idea, okay, I went to school, I got my degree, I should be working with my degree. And a lot of times depression hits in and people go to numbing, alcohol, drugs, sex, food, gaming, pick something, whatever your drug of choice. It could be just laying and staring at the wall for hours, smoking pot. And it's really important to understand at any age, not just when you're young, it's okay to have experiences of different jobs. And that's how you learn. Like, what I love about the parents that give their children freedom, it's like, just go to junior college and take as many courses as you want and learn what you like to do. Like, those parents give their kids so much freedom into exploring into what they want to do. I didn't know I was going to be a healer. Even though when I was a kid, like if like people sat down and talked to me. When I was a kid, people used to come just sit and talk to me, and I just listened. And I didn't think anything of it. And in retrospect, I'm like, I was always meant to be a counselor,
Mm.
a spiritual counselor. And people would always, and I would sometimes would say something, they'd be like, wow, you're so wise for your age. Like I got that like when I was little. And I'm like, okay. So I knew what I was meant to do, but I wasn't guided in that direction. But it's like the world around me was telling me this is what I was meant to do. But if I was stuck on, oh, I went and got this education, like when we have experiences, then we learn what we're meant to do. Experimenting. I love that. So everybody, give yourself the opportunity to experiment and make money in the process. Yeah. So go on, Kris.
Yeah, it's a little tough because of especially like I mentioned earlier, how more and more people are at the very least getting an undergraduate degree these days, which is great because it means more people are educated, more people have a greater variety of skill sets that they need to succeed more in life. But it's also a double-edged sword in a way because one, it almost devalues the the process of actually getting that education, because as more people have it, like it's just by supply and demand, the value drops. And then on top of that too, it kind of it shoehorns you into a specific path, because if you like me, if you go to school for this one thing and you graduate with that degree, you're like, well, I should be doing that one thing. And then there's this dissonance in your head of like, maybe you don't like it, or maybe you're struggling to find a job in that field. And you're like, but I put in all this time and effort and resources into getting this education. Why am I not doing something with it? And that's when the depression and anxiety starts to set in.
Yeah. Like when I went to college, I didn't know what I wanted to do actually. Because like you, I actually didn't care about degrees. I didn't care about money. I just wanted to hang out with the people. I think I went to school just to have fun.
I did a little bit of both. I went to school because my mother wanted me to go to school, but I had as much fun as I could
Yeah,
and got the best
exactly.
grades I could at the same time.
Exactly. Like in junior college, there's 15 of us that became good friends, and we used to hang out all the time and have fun and partied. And when I say partied, I didn't do drugs and alcohol, but we just loved being together, and it was so much fun. But I started out as I took accounting classes because my uncle was an accountant. And I was always good in math. I used to tutor algebra in high school. Like math was easy, but in accounting classes, oh my God, I was so bored and I hated it. I was like, "Ugh, what is this?" And I don't think I'm an accountant personality. And one of my friends was like, okay, why don't you take acting class and dance class? I was like, what? Acting class? That's crazy. And dance class? He's like, come on. So I'm like, okay, fine, but you have to help me. I've never done acting. I don't know. I fell in love with being on stage, with performing. It was just so easy and natural. And then I went to acting school, and I went to school to be an actress, and I finished school, and then I pursued it professionally. I did not like the profession. I love the arts. I still love acting. I love the art of acting. But as a profession, I'm like, that's not my personality. I'm not like a party girl. And, that's not, I enjoy having fun and partying in a wholesome way, but not in like what it needed. And I felt like, because the feedback was, you got to dress like this, you got to talk like this, you got to change your hair. And I'm just like, why does it matter? If I'm acting, I'm going to be someone else anyways.
Mhm.
So I decided not to pursue it as a profession, to just love it as a fun thing that I did. And then started pursuing the healing arts. And that just came to me, it just happened actually. And I trusted it and just started going down that path and going to school and taking more education and all that stuff. So we get led if we're open. But if I was like, no, I went to school to be an actress, I have to pursue acting, I would have been miserable, because I
Yeah.
really did not like the profession. I don't have that personality of rejection. And schmoozing, and I'm just like, I'm a friendly person, but I'm not gonna schmooze with anybody.
And superficial value.
Exactly. It was like, nope. And I did it, like I said, I did it locally with friends and family, like dancing, you get up, you dance. So and I'm glad that I was open. I was just like open to see what else is out there for me. And it sounds like after the struggle of depression, and I've been through that, like, I mean, shifting your what you think you need to do is not easy. So like, yeah, share more about, the depression set in, and it's challenging to expect something and then to shift into something else, especially I think when we're young, because we think, okay, I got this, I'm going to take on the world, right?
Yeah. And we've also been told, at least I was my whole life, that like you get a degree and you can get into that field.
Mhm.
Maybe that was true at some point. It's certainly not today. Because
So
like we
what?
were saying earlier, you need to know people
Mhm.
in the industry. You got to have connections on top of all of these other boxes that you have to check just to have a chance.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like, and I very nearly killed myself going to school because I worked so hard while I was in school trying to get the most value out of my scholarship as possible by taking as many classes as I possibly could. And computer science is not an easy discipline to study, so
Mhm.
that was an extra factor. And then also partying as much as possible because it's like, well, I'm in college, I gotta enjoy it while I can. I'm not just going to spend all my time studying. So it was both. And so after college, I was just completely burnt out. And I also, in that time period, had realized this is not quite what I want to do. So I didn't make those connections that would be necessary to actually succeed in the field. And
Mhm.
so I started pivoting after that point because I was really interested. I've been doing art my whole life. I wanted to start focusing on my art again because I had no time to work on art while I was in school for many, many years. And I thought, well, I might as well take it more seriously now and see if I can do something with this. I thought I was going to sneeze. It's probably going to
It's
come
you.
back.
It's okay.
Okay. So
And
I
I
started
wait, I
exploring
want to
other
I
things.
want to pause for a minute. Do you remember when, I don't know how old you were, but you created this game and you and I, Christina, used to play it. You guys were still living in Hawaii. It was a board game. Do you remember that?
Not really,
You
no.
don't remember your board game? Okay, I don't remember how old. Maybe you were 12 or something. I don't know. It's around when your mom and John got together. How old were you?
Yeah, it probably would have been right around then, like 12, 13.
Yeah. Anyways, that was fun. The board game was fun. You were
Yeah.
explaining it to us, and you made the models and everything. It was fun. So yeah.
I seem to vaguely remember something like this, but at this point it would be a half remembered dream to me, being so
Yeah.
long ago.
And also we were Harry Potter nerds. Like, remember we spent the whole time also watching Harry Potter with.
Yep, I believe it.
It was fun. Okay,
Yeah.
so go on. Because what I'm trying to say, you're always creative, artistic, and also it makes sense that you wanted to go into creating games because you did actually create a board game when you were very young.
Yeah. And I've always been creating things.
Yeah.
So I mean, the problem, like I said before, is that it is a very, very competitive industry, and I didn't have the specialized training or the referrals to actually get in. Not to say that I didn't try. I spent the following years after I finished school constantly applying to different game development studios, but the kind of joke among a lot of industries like that these days for new graduates is that the lowest experience level required is like 2 to 6 years of previous professional experience. And it's like a chicken before the egg problem where you're like, how do I get the experience if this is the first place you start?
Right. Yeah.
And that's not
Exactly.
just true for that field either. I mean, I have a friend that works in psychology and social services, and it's the same thing.
Mhm.
There are no entry-level jobs anymore.
Yeah. And I think it's more challenging because people don't even want to companies don't want to train employees anymore.
It's too expensive.
It's yeah, but it's not like in
It's
my
really
mother's
not.
time and
It's
your mother's and my time. There was training. They sent you to training schools and you got trained. And nowadays you're just expected to know like WordPress or whatever industry. They want you to be already trained and done and ready to go.
yeah. I think
So
it's been a shift from like short-term investment to long-term investment, and also a lot of those trainings have been outsourced to third-party sources. So like there are countless like independent third-party services that provide you with training for making games or programming or being a social worker or something like that. But the companies themselves no longer offer that kind of training because they want you to start giving them value as soon as you step in the door, day one.
it's
Um,
true.
which in a way it makes a lot more sense because every company does things differently. If they'd rather take you as a blank slate and teach you the way, it's a little more investment, of course, but in the long term, you're going to be doing things the way that they want you to do them, which is going to be much more efficient for their overall workforce.
Mhm.
There's a stigma among at least programmers that they much prefer to hire like fresh graduates, people in a lot of cases, if they're looking for like lower to middle level talent, because or people with some amount of experience, but not too much.
Mhm.
Because if you have too much experience or you've been in the industry for too long, you will have developed idiosyncrasies and preferred methods of doing things that may not necessarily align with what the company wants to do. Whereas if they had just trained you from the start, that wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, it's true. Things have changed so much.
Mm-hmm.
And we gotta be open to the changes constantly. And I think changes happen faster and faster because now people educate themselves through online. It's easy to educate yourself. You tap into online library or online YouTube, anything, like everything's on YouTube, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can learn skills. I don't remember where I saw this, but this woman like built her house just from learning on YouTube. So anyways, so back to your story.
I mean, I also built that paver path at the other
Yes.
property just from a couple of YouTube videos.
Yeah, exactly.
I've learned most of my art, like fundamental skills, other than through practice, like composition, color theory, anatomy, stuff like that, through YouTube videos.
And yeah, and I love we're talking about that too. It's all about having an open mind, open heart. Like the first thing I tell my clients when they want to start work with me, I'm like, do you have an open mind, open heart to learn? Because if you don't, it's harder. It's important to always have an open mind and open heart. Open mind, obviously, so you can retain information and see if it works for you. An open heart to feel your way through it, to see if it's an alignment for you to do. And I actually like that we can learn things from YouTube or courses through the library or other places, that you're not in school for 2 to 4 years wasting your time and energy and money you either borrowed or someone else is helping you. So it just makes it easier.
Yeah.
Like I've learned a lot of skills in the past that I haven't used, but I learned them to pursue them as a career, but it didn't pan out. And it was like, okay, and I would pay for the course, and whether it was $500 or $1,000 or $2,000. And now it's like a lot of us don't need to do that because we have YouTube,
Yeah.
which is awesome.
At the very least, to get a taste in a lot
Yeah.
of cases. You can
Yeah.
seek more refined instruction for if you pay a little bit of money. But it's growing cheaper and more prevalent with each passing year, which begs the question of like, why does anybody go to school anymore? That's what I thought while I was in school. I was like, why am I here?
I used to know a friend who worked for Sony creating games,
Hmm.
and he didn't go to school. He was self-taught, and he was a prodigy. Um, and they picked him up like right away. I think when he was 18 or something, they hired him. And um, so it's like and he was self-taught as well.
Hmm.
So he never went to school and was very successful. And then he started doing movies, the paranormal movies. Do you know those?
Maybe I really don't watch a lot of movies.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people know. And he wrote them and directed. And so yeah, it was just what he loved to do. And he taught himself how to write because he just loved watching movies. I'd go to his house. I'm friends with his ex-girlfriend, and I'll go to their house, and they had wall to wall movies.
Hmm.
And he's like, you know what, I'm gonna write a movie and film it in my house. And he did, and it just went viral. So it's amazing. So we have a lot of support, and it's important to seek support and to ask for help,
Hmm.
especially when we feel stuck. Like you started talking about the depression, and I would love for you to go back. That's important because a lot of us, when we get stuck, we get overwhelmed and we feel depressed, and we feel stuck, and we don't know how to reach out and how to get to the other side of that or get
Hmm.
through it. So please, Kris, go ahead.
I mean, I'm not really sure what to say. It's a bad time.
Yeah.
I don't know if I mean, for me, there were other aspects to it, like the pandemic and my relationship that just made it worse and worse and worse and
Mhm.
worse. I wouldn't even say that I'm really over all of that yet. I'd say maybe on the upward slope, but I don't have much to say because I'm still dealing with it myself.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. But what I observed is that you do contrary action, regardless of, you went through your depression. I know it seems like you're coming out of it. Even though we get depressed, I experienced depression and have when I was young a lot. It's important to do contrary action, not let the depression take us out of our life.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I'm saying?
You have to keep putting one foot in front of the other, even if you're really, really bummed out. Just
Mhm.
keep moving in a direction. If it doesn't work, move in a different direction. It's not going to fix itself overnight. That's just not how these things work. But if you
Exactly.
keep moving, eventually you'll get somewhere. And at the very least, if you don't go anywhere, if you let it tie you down, you're not going to get anywhere at all,
Exactly.
and you'll
Exactly.
never get over it.
Exactly. And it prolong the depression gets worse and worse, and you go deeper into it. So it's important to get up, like they say, fake it till you make it. Even though you're feeling depressed, get up, get in the shower, brush your teeth, get dressed, and do nothing for the rest of the day. But at least do that, you know.
I've
Go
definitely
ahead.
been there. And it still feels a lot better than rolling out in your pajamas and feeling like, oh, I'm not going to do anything today.
Exactly. Just do the basic self-care. It's important to
Hmm.
do the basic self-care. Brush your teeth, floss, wash your face, put clean clothes on.
Eat good food,
Yes, drink
drink
lots
water.
of water. Exactly. And it's okay if you feel depressed and you're drinking and smoking. I'm not saying you should do that. But if you are doing it, you're doing it. Don't beat yourself up, and do contrary action, and then contrary thinking and contrary feeling. Start listening to podcasts. There was a time in my life where I was so depressed, I couldn't get out of bed because I was in a lot of pain. I was in a very bad car accident.
Hmm.
And I used to watch The Secret. And not that it was a great documentary, but it uplifted and it shifted my thinking. It helped me. And I would lay in bed and just watch it over and over and over again. And it's like, it's better than doing absolutely nothing. So, excuse me, on the days where you're like, I can't do this right now, I'm not able, what is the little things that helped you, Kris?
A lot of times I feel like we may have mentioned this before too.
That's
I,
okay.
I would return to past comforts.
Mhm.
I would go for things not necessarily like coping mechanisms like drugs or alcohol, but I would return to something like a show or a book or a podcast or a certain YouTube personality or an activity like drawing that I just knew no matter what was going on, if I got into it, I would at least feel a little bit better.
Yeah, and it's important. It's important to make a list. This is what I suggest. It's important to make a list of the things that support your life and have the list. So, because when we're in depression or overwhelm or anxiety, we forget. We forget that we have support. We forget that we have tools. It's important to write it down and reach for it. So you'll be like, oh, I like walks. Okay. I'm going to drag myself and go for walks slowly and be depressed and walk anyways.
Mhm.
Oh, drink water. Okay, I should drink water because we just forget. We forget to take care of ourselves. We start neglecting our basic needs.
Which only makes things worse.
Yeah.
Similar to the way that if you do engage in a coping mechanism or you engage in some behavior that you don't necessarily approve of, and then you start beating yourself up about it, you're
Mhm.
only making things worse for yourself. I mean, in a certain way, this is the only reason that I finished school in the way that I did. I used a lot of what do they call it? Um, vacuous motivation, which is where it's like the carrot versus the stick situation. Because this, I don't know if this was the intention, but this is how I feel I was raised. It's like, do this or you will be punished and you are a bad person. And that is the only way that I got through school in the way that I did. However, that mentality that made me push so hard before carried over into the time afterwards when it's like you haven't found the job you want yet, you're a terrible person, you're a failure. It's like, and it took a long time. It took years to finally just like tell that little voice in your head, just shut up, just leave me alone. Like you don't know what you're talking about. And it's
Exactly.
the situation is still present. You're still here on this planet in the way that you are, but at the very least, you don't have this shadow on your shoulder yelling at you every time you make a mistake.
Exactly. And it's important to have compassion for yourself because all
Exactly.
of us have these the watcher, the judger, those voices inside of us. It's like, thank you for sharing. Like I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I need you to be my ally and my cheerleader, not my judge. Like
Yeah,
reframing that voice.
it's a really good exercise, I think, is to
Yeah,
anytime you hear that voice, just be like, what if they were on my side instead? Like, what would they say?
exactly. That's what, and I talk to those voices. I'm like, I need you to be my friend. I need you to be kind to me. I need you to be an ally. I need you to be positive because that's what helps me. You being mean to me, it is not helpful, dude.
Yeah, exactly. I like to imagine it as though it were, if I were talking to a real person
Mhm.
and they were saying these kinds of things to me. One, either you walk away, tell them to just go away, like I don't want to hear it. Just
F off.
stop talking. Yeah, exactly. Just silence at the very least.
Yeah.
Or you imagine them, if they were a real person, nobody in their right mind, even if they were a stranger, would say this to you unless they were specifically just trying to hurt you. And when you reframe it in a more concrete sense, I feel it makes it easier to shift that perspective into a way that at the very least is a net neutral and at the best is actually a supporting voice for you.
Exactly. And that's the other tool that I recommend is writing down everything you like about yourself. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Like what you like about your body. What you like your eyes, your hair, your lips, you have strong legs, you have strong arms, you move fast, you have stamina. What you like about your mind. Your mind is sharp, you figure things out because when we're in depression, and or anxiety and overwhelm, we forget who we are. We forget our goodness. We forget our empowerment. We forget our strengths. We forget that we do have wisdom and we do have tools. So write all this stuff down. So when you're in that place of feeling lost, and all of us go through this throughout our life at different points in our life. Like this past year, my sister died, my dog Happy died, my uncle died, like within 4 months. And one of my teachers, I felt lost. And I started getting angry, and I'm like, okay, I need to remember who I am. So have a notebook of tools for your life. And one of the tools, like you put down, drink water, go for a walk, brush your teeth, comb your hair, put on nice clothes. Like I don't know where I learned this from. A long time ago, when I was young, I learned that when I felt the worst, I dressed the best. Like I would put on what people call their Sunday clothes.
Yeah.
And people would be like, wow, you look good. You must be happy. And I'm like, no, I actually feel miserable, but I'm glad that I look good. And little by slow, I would come out of it because I did contrary dressing. I felt bad. I didn't dress like I felt bad. I dressed like I was going to Sunday, my best Sunday clothes, or to a party. Like I literally, I remember there was a time in my life where I felt really bad. So I would wear these long gowns and go to the mall. And people would be like, did you come from a wedding? I'm like, no. I just needed to remind myself that life is good, even though I'm feeling that it's not. Life is good.
Yeah.
Like dress nice, make more of an effort. And it does take an effort when we're in deep depression or anxiety. I think it's worse. Like,
Or both.
yeah, both at the same time. Make it takes an effort, and take the effort. You're worth it.
Yeah, I'd say there's some resistance in those scenarios, and the fake it till you make it thing works in both directions, because you ultimately are all that you are as a person, and if you let that voice in your head fake you into being less than you are, you will be.
Yep.
On the contrary, if you put in the effort to be more than you are, you will be.
Yes.
And it's not easy. It's much easier to just wallow in negativity most of the time. Um, but if you want to make a change, it's one of the more consistent ways that you can do it. Because a lot of times we become attached to things like, oh, I'm depressed because I don't have enough money. Well, I'm gonna go make a bunch of money or something. It's like, well, is that gonna happen today? No, probably not. Like, but you know what you can do? You can, do your hair up and put a nice shirt on, and then you feel a little bit better.
You do, and it does shift our feeling about ourselves.
Mhm.
It's like if I'm dressed like a frump and I look in the mirror, I'm like, oh, and it makes me feel worse.
Exactly.
But if I feel really bad about myself and I dress up and look good, like, oh, I look nice,
Mhm.
with resistance.
Yes.
And it is important to take care. So I like when I work with couples, I always tell them, and this applies to us. When does it really matter if you like yourself? It's when you don't like yourself. I always tell couples, if you want to know if you can live with this person, it's easy. It's really easy to like someone when they look good, smell good, and they're smart and sharp and funny. That's easy.
Yeah.
It's easy to like yourself when you look good and everything's going well. You're doing well in school, you're doing well in your job, you're making money, you've got girls, boys, men, women, whatever you're into. That's easy. But can you like yourself, care for yourself, love yourself when you're in depression, when you're experiencing, and it's an experience, it's not who you are, when you're experiencing depression and anxiety, overwhelm, not good enough? can you show up for yourself? That's when it counts. And I tell couples, if you cannot show up for your partner when they're hurting, when they're throwing up, if you can't hold their hair up or be there and give them water, like what being with someone throwing up is disgusting,
Yes,
right?
I'm intimately aware.
It's like, it's like, "Whoa." But the thing is, if you love that person, that's when you show up, when they look like they're disgusting. If you can't do that, you really don't have a business to be with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you can't show up for yourself when you're hurting, then it's hard to show up really for yourself when you're not, because that's superficial.
Mhm.
And a lot of us have superficial relationships with ourselves, even with ourselves. So it's like, I'm going to love me no matter what. I'm going to love me whether my hair is spiked up or spiked down or whatever I look like, and keep taking action steps towards how I want to be, how I want to look, what kind of money I want, what kind of people I want to hang out with, what kind of person I want to date. Show up for you when you're hurting. That's when it really counts. And don't be like in fixing mode, be in compassion, acceptance, loving mode.
Mhm.
So I know I shared like dress nice, and I still do this when I don't feel good. I just like pick out my best outfit and people be like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I don't know."
From the bedroom to the couch.
Exactly. At least I look good.
Yeah, at least I look awesome.
Exactly. Like I said, it lifts my spirit up because I just changed energy. I changed something about me
Mhm.
to make me feel good, but also accepting that I feel depressed, I feel anxiety, I feel overwhelmed, I feel not enough, and having compassion for myself when I'm having those experiences, and knowing that this too shall pass. Nothing's
Yes.
forever. You know, we feel good and we don't feel good. We're going to experience the spectrum of life. Yes.
Yes. But we're never going to be absolutely static. No matter what that voice in your head is telling you, something will change eventually.
Eventually. But some people, Kris, get stuck
Oh, I know. I
because
know.
they,
I've been that
yeah,
person.
yeah, me too. Like when years ago when I was in that severe car accident, I was in so much pain, but I was emotionally, mentally, and spiritually stuck. Like I slept for 6 months and I was stuck because I was in so much physical pain. Like it was so new to me. I didn't know how to deal with it.
Mhm.
And I've heard some people experience that. I've talked to a client. She was in this job and she was so abused. She's a chemist, PhD chemist. And her boss abused her. And she got fired, which is interesting. Sometimes we don't know how to take care of ourselves. Like she had to get fired to learn to take care of herself. And she said, Hadia, I slept the first 6 months. I was so emotionally distraught and mentally abused that I couldn't get out of bed. And sometimes we need to do that. And it's okay. And now she has a great job that she loves and she's healthy and she's doing well. So it's okay to accept the downtimes and not beat yourself up. That's when you truly show up with kindness, with compassion, with loving, with understanding, when you are being hurt and challenged in your body, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically. You want to share a little bit about that for you, like the country thoughts and feelings, and um, when I know you said you're still kind of in it and getting out of it, um, if you want.
Yeah, so do you want the positive or the negative aspects of this?
I think it's good to share both because a lot of people don't share the negative, and I think that's a disservice
Uh-huh.
because most people, when we're hurting, we think we're the only person, we're alone, nobody hurts
Mhm.
like us, and it's not true. I'm not saying all of us hurt the same, but
Mhm.
we hurt similar.
Yeah.
you know, it's like depression. You can't get out of bed. A lot of people
It's a
experience that.
human experience. One
Exactly.
way or another, we're all going to find ways that we can connect.
So share both, whatever you're comfortable with sharing. I don't want to, put stuff out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pace yourself.
Yeah, well, I'd say that at the end of my school career, I was pretty much like right on top, like best that life can be. Like great circle of friends, about to finish my degree, got a lot of stuff, side projects going on, thinking about the future, fantastic relationship, like everything is good. And then I finished school. And then things don't quite go the way that I want them to. And at the same time, I was so incredibly burnt out from working so hard for so long that I really needed to just sleep for 6 months. But I couldn't do that because I still had to keep working. I still had to keep taking the next steps to what I was going to do, but nothing was really working out. And then it was at the same time that my partner stopped showing up for me. When
Mm.
I needed her most, she stopped showing up. And
Ouch.
that made it worse and
Yeah.
worse and worse. And so that's what all these things piled on top of each other. And then I finally took a risk and tried to go do exactly what I had planned to do. And she left me and cheated on me. And then when I got to the place that I wanted to be, I didn't get the job I wanted. My bills were way too high. And I was stuck in a job that put me in a lot of physical pain on top of the emotional pain of having been cheated on and like lost this relationship. So everything was just downhill, downhill. And again, these were all moments when I needed to just sleep for 6 months, but I couldn't. I couldn't stop moving because I had bills to pay. I still wanted to at least put in an effort to do what I had planned to do. But it's kind of like driving a car with only one wheel and no steering wheel.
Mhm.
It didn't work very well.
Yeah, it doesn't. And if I can pause, don't lose your thought, Kris, please, because you're on a great path here. It's important. If you need 6 months of sleep, take it.
It's really important.
It is very important to rejuvenate ourselves. We need downtime. Downtime is healing. Otherwise, you run yourself to nothingness. And some people start getting actually physically sick. So go on, Kris. Thank you.
Yeah. So it wasn't until probably maybe a year or more after the point at which, maybe even 2 years, at the point after the point at which I really needed to rest. It was not until 2 years of pain stacking on top of each other until this last time when I was living in Sedona, and I finally just kind of got to rest for a while. Even then, like my mother was like, "Hey, I need you to do work on the house. I need you to work on the house. You need to make money and do this, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "No, I'm just not going to do anything for a while. Thank you very much." Um, and that was exactly what I needed, is to just do that for a while. I moved back to a place where I had plenty of friends around me that I could spend time with. I developed a new relationship that was very positive and loving for that time. And so I finally just got to breathe and
Mm,
not and kind of let go of all these things that had been causing me so much pain for many years at this point. And then when we finally met right before I moved, you saw the result of
yeah.
that.
And I want to point this out again. You said, and I finally got to breathe.
Yeah.
And we do that. We cut when we're in pain, we actually stop breathing deeply. We breathe just enough to sustain us and keep us alive, but we're not living.
Mhm.
So, like I said again, we forget. When we're in pain, we forget how to take care of ourselves. And one of the most valuable ways to take care of ourselves is to breathe deeply. A couple of days ago, a client of mine reached out that I've been working with many years, wasn't feeling well. And I'm like, we just spent the session time breathing deeply. And then he actually texted me today saying, thank you. It's what I needed. We don't think about breathing when we need to breathe. Like take in deep, slow breaths and do it all day if you need to.
Mhm.
Breath and water heals us. Slowing down heals us. Sleeping is healing. I used to work in rehab, drugs and alcohol. and they would wake people up early. And I was so against it. I'm like, they need to sleep. They're so distraught. Why do you think people are doing drugs? Because they're distraught. This is why people go to addiction, because they're distraught. Let them sleep. Like, I loved being of service to people who were in pain, but I did not like how the program worked. Sleeping is valuable. Breathing, slowing things down. Like, I love, it's a gift that you give that to yourself. Like, I gave that gift to me when I came out to Hawaii, and I used to stay with you guys. Do you remember? I used to come and stay with you. You were like 4 or 5.
I see. I couldn't think of like specific events, but I know that you were around every once in a while.
I was around a lot, actually.
Again, a half remembered dream at this point.
And I used to sleep in your room. You guys would sleep upstairs, and your room was the guest room too. So I would take over your bedroom. And it was the best gift. I gave myself 6 months, and I called it I was 30, and there was a lot going on. I just finished graduate school. I was going through a divorce, and it was just a lot. I was so exhausted and so distraught. So I called it getting off the train. I'm getting off the train. I didn't have a cell phone. I chose not to have a cell phone. I chose not to have a car. I was like, I'm going to go back to the basics.
Yeah.
And because I didn't want people calling me, where are you? What are you doing? I just needed to get quiet. And I read a lot. I prayed. I slept a lot. People thought I was in deep depression, but I was just resting. I'd go to the beach. I'd go swimming. I walked a lot. Like, I didn't want a car, because I just wanted to walk and connect to nature. And it was really the best gift I gave myself. And then got back into to Los Angeles and started working again and rebuilding my life again. So it's important to give yourself downtime, transition from one thing after another. When I graduated high school, I was also exhausted, and I went into deep depression. So I used to go to the beach every day. I went to the beach every day, and I told my mom that I was looking for a job because I needed gas money. I would go to the beach Monday through Friday. I didn't go to the beach on the weekends because it was too packed. I didn't want to be around a lot of crowds. And I would just go swimming, go running, and rest and sleep. And it's just and I did it for 3 months, and then I got a job. But it was healing. That's what I needed to heal, to reconnect, to bridge high school into young adulthood, and to figure out if I wanted to go to college. And when I graduated from each program I've done, like, I do post-depression. I don't know why, because I miss the connections, what I had. And now I need transition time. I need downtime into transitioning from one thing to another. So give yourself permission to have downtime, and do it on vacation if you can. It didn't cost a lot for me to live. I lived on Kauai. I had an apartment I paid rent for, and I used to come and stay with you guys, and your mom was always generous. I didn't have to pay rent. So people will show up, and your mom and I weren't friends. We knew each other, but we weren't friends before that. And when I got there, she's like, yeah, you can come and stay with us. I was like, okay, thank you.
That is very much like her.
Yeah. And I didn't ask. She was like, just come and stay with us. I was like, okay. So I'm sorry. So you were saying, do you remember? I hope you remember.
Yeah, so I was saying about after all of this period of rest, before we started talking about periods of rest, that you came to visit right as I was finally hit the bottom, coming back up again. Finally got some time to rest, and now I could move forward again, making my own decisions, making some money, planning out the future, and striving for things that I actually wanted to do, and taking back my own autonomy.
Yeah.
But I don't, if I had tried to do that, say like right after I'd moved back from Seattle, when I was leaving a job that I hated,
Mhm.
And I was still talking to my ex, and she would barely give me the time of day and was lying to me about like what was going to happen with us in the future. Um, if I had done that right after that, I don't think it would have worked. I
Yeah.
think I would have just crashed and burned again. I just needed time to do nothing for a while, just enjoy the things that I liked to do and not worry about all this stuff that, oh, you should be doing this, you should be doing this, you should be making this much, like you should know this many people, you should be dating this. It's like, just stop, stop.
So share, Kris, share with us the benefits of taking that time for yourself. Because we live in the Western world. We live in a society that does not encourage for people to slow down and take time out.
Hmm.
And like people put down homeless people, and I'm like, why? That's what they need. What if they don't want to do that, they could change it. We all have the capability, to do whatever we want. And I'm like, my goodness, they have so much freedom. Like they're home wherever they are. How freeing is that?
Hmm.
Right? So, like you've shared the down, and if there's more down that you want to share, please do. And share with us the benefits of taking um, downtime and the good stuff and the bad stuff.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, the bad thing was that I just wasn't doing very much for a while. I wasn't advancing my career to make X amount of dollars per year kind of thing. But the good side was that I reconnected with a lot of people that were very important to me. I learned to have a relationship again, a romantic relationship, after all the pain that I had been through. And I started becoming more creative again, and exploring even different avenues, not just art, but music and songwriting, um, and doing collaborations with other people that I knew that were artistic. So it really felt like it was a breath of fresh air after having worried about having the same type of shadow and weight on my back for so many years of just like pushing that off and being like, all right, I'm going to do whatever I want now. Um, and now I just feel a lot better. It's like things objectively have not really changed much. Like I still need to make money, like I'm still trying to figure out my career, but the internal perspective of what's happening around me through my own eyes has changed significantly. And it's that whole, and that goes along with the judgment voice thing, where now the judgment voice, I'm either like, you know what, just shut up, I don't want to hear it, or I'm like, hey, how about you tell me how awesome I am today? Or I do a thing where like when I do a good thing, I just do that,
Yay.
pretending that there's somebody there going like, yeah,
Yeah,
nice job, nice job. Which is, it sounds silly, but like if you really start to invest in it, it makes you feel a little bit better. It's no worse than if you had done nothing.
exactly. And it's not silly. Like I teach that. The thing that I say, give yourself what you need from the world. If you
Hmm.
need someone to listen to you, you got to listen to yourself. If you need someone to notice you, you notice yourself. I work with a lot of people who have a hard time standing in the mirror and looking at themselves because they judge themselves. They're ugly, they're fat, they're short, they're too skinny, too tall, too whatever, I mean, I've worked with people who are very good looking and they're like, I'm too good looking, and they can't stand it because people hate it on them, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't matter what you look like, there's somebody out there that's going to be mean to you.
Hmm.
and and what I love about your description, what happened when you took time out, you came home into you, you started getting to know yourself again. And not only that, you started discovering new things about yourself, new talents, songwriting, music. I mean, you wrote a beautiful song that you shared with me. You wrote the lyrics and the word and the melody.
Yes.
So, and that's why downtime is important. Take the time to get to know yourself. And it's like, what else about me that I didn't know? Discovering who you are at the different stages of your life.
Hmm.
The way I used to do that in my 20s and 30s, I used to go, and I still do it, but on my own. I used to go on silent retreats. Like there's silent retreats all over the US and I'm sure the world. And I would go for a week and just be silent and not speak a word to anyone or myself, but I would notice my thoughts. And I would go in prayer and meditation and reading and writing spiritual uplifting things and rediscover myself, reconnect to my essence, to my core, to my spirit, to my soul, and discover my thoughts and my feelings. I remember I don't know, I think I was 25 or 6 or something. I was on this silent retreat for 7 days, and my God, my mind did not stop talking. And then not only my mind did not stop talking, my mind was so negative drama. I'm like, oh my God, I can write these soap operas.
I didn't know what you're talking about.
I'm just like, wow, I am so dramatic in my thinking. And then I realized I'm also very creative. Like I had this creative, dramatic thinking. It was just it was, and then at first I was upset. I'm like, shh, silent. You know? Like I'm not speaking out loud, but let me tell you,
Yeah.
my mind got the like I didn't use voice words, but it was like, oh, and it was louder and louder. And then I started enjoying my creativity. I'm like, I have a really creative mind. Like I can just go places with this.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, I should write that down.
Yes,
Change the character names, but I should write that down.
exactly. And I didn't choose to pursue it. You know, I don't want to be a screenwriter or whatever. But it came in hand when I became a hypnotherapist. I started writing scripts, specific scripts for my clients. And I would tape them. So and I discovered that before I became a hypnotherapist, I discovered that in my silent retreat that I have a creative mind. So it's important to have those downtimes to get to know who you are and to seek it in a positive way. Just because my mind was negative and dramatic, I'm like, oh, this is really creative. So it was
Yeah, take the positive spin on it.
exactly. So yeah, it's important to get to know yourself again and again. I repeat myself all the time about this because it's important. Awaken to who you truly are by getting to know yourself, spending time, downtime, quiet time. Stop distracting yourself. If you need to rest, rest. If you need to sleep, sleep. I want to know what else you have on your notes, if you want to cover them before we start wrapping up, Kris.
Definitely focus towards our original topic, which I feel like we're still related to, but I feel like we veered off of my original interpretation of the topic.
It's okay.
Um, so we already talked about no more rails. A lot of this is like logistical things.
Yeah, please share.
Things like a challenge being the geographic availability of your desired career. Um, whether you're passionate about something or you just need a career to make a living. Settling, we talked a little bit about this, settling into a job that you don't necessarily like just to make ends meet. And dreams versus reality. I talked about my experience with that. One of the positives is that you're free from academics and judgment. And your time is now your own because you're not, school is no longer your job that you don't get paid for. You get to decide what you want to do with your time. You can choose to live wherever you want. You're not stuck in one place for X number of years while you finish a certain academic career. Talked about debt versus value, how much your value you're actually getting out of the money you spent, but that's not really how it works, even though that's kind of how it's sold to us. You're free to pursue non-academic goals now. In many ways, like for people who don't choose to pursue higher education and instead decide just to do what they want or pursue a specific trade or a craft, like you now have that same freedom that somebody did if they were no longer in school. And one thing that I really noticed and enjoyed was that, especially in academia, your your school work, it follows you home. It's not like working a day job where you clock in and then you clock out. You don't have to think about it anymore until the next day. With school, every single waking moment of your experience is, oh, I've got something to do. Oh, when is that due? Oh, when is that class? I wonder if my group mate finished their part of the work. I really should work on this, but I feel like I kind of just want to sleep some more or watch TV, but I can't afford to get a bad grade on this. It follows you everywhere. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Little lightning round of the other things that I thought of.
Yeah. Um, I was gonna go back to, so the other value of taking downtime is that you start listening to, I call it your universe. The world around you gives you guidance. Like I decided to become a hypnotherapist. I love education and I'm dyslexic and I have this pattern. I don't know if it's a pattern or a condition. Like I get severe anxiety when I'm taking a test. And even though I'm smart and because I'm dyslexic, like I would get a perfect F, like everything would be backwards. Literally.
Yeah, yeah. Test anxiety is a real thing.
Yeah. And so I went to a hypnotherapist and we did one session before I started school up again. And then I took my classes and it went well. And then I took another, and then towards the end of the semester, just before my finals, I did another session and I aced all my classes. Like I was the A student in the class. Like, oh, this is amazing. And it felt good inside of me. And I'm like, I want to do this. It helped me. I want to help other people. So I went to hypnotherapy school. And the reason I was guided because I love helping people. I'm like, if this helps me, just imagine how I can help people with this. And the same thing, I was guided to go to Hawaii. I actually wanted to go to Guatemala to teach English and just like relax and just because it's slower than being in the US. But I was getting guided to go to Hawaii and I never wanted to go to Hawaii ever because I was like, oh, it's for honeymooners. It's overrated. I've never been, but I'm like, I don't want to I was getting divorced. I don't want to go to a place where
Full
honeymooners
of newlywed couples.
Exactly. And then everywhere I went, I'm not exaggerating this, I would see Hawaiian lays on people's mirrors, rear view mirrors. I would see the hang loose sign,
Yeah.
bumper stickers. I started seeing Hawaiian shirts. I started seeing the car seats. People had the Hawaiian car seats. I would
Seat
go
covers.
the seat covers. And I'm just like, what is happening here? I would go to a coffee shop. Exactly. I'd go to a coffee shop and a person would be like, how's it going in paradise today?
Would you like the Kona blend?
Exactly. No one's ever said that to me before. And then I started meeting up with people going, oh, we just came back from Hawaii. Oh, we're going to Hawaii. And I'm just like, okay, I get it loud and clear. I'm not supposed to go to Guatemala. I'm supposed to go to Hawaii. And I was like, what the heck? I have to change like my whole, but I trusted because I got quiet. I trusted the guidance and everything unfolded like easily. Then we all have this voice inside of us that guides us, but our ego is louder. So you got to get quiet to hear it. And then this voice inside of me said, call your friend Mike from USM. Am I good? Actually, I got he wrote a book on grieving. He said, I just got it today. It's a great book. Your mom recommended. I called Mike and Mike and I haven't talked for months. And he's like, what's happening? I'm like, I'm getting this guidance to go to Hawaii. I don't know why. He goes, oh, you should call our friend Debbie. She lives in Hawaii. I didn't even know like your mom lived in Maui, like, because we weren't friends. We went to school together. We saw each other, but we never really sat down and talked. I'm like,
Mhm.
really? I've never talked to her. He goes, yeah, here's her number. Call her. She's really great. I call your mom. She's like, yeah, come over. I'm like, okay. So I'm meant to go because the doors were open. I just had to keep saying yes. And I had to listen and say yes and listen and say yes. So all of us, when you get quiet, your universe, your world tells you when you need to get quiet. Depression, anxiety, overwhelm is really guiding you to get quiet, not to fight it, to really go deep into it and get quiet and listen. And you get healed and you get guided into the next steps of your life. I'm sure you have at least a few stories like that, Kris, where you got guided to go into a direction. Like I'm sensing you got guided to move where you're living right now, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think I wouldn't say a few stories because throughout my life I have been very objectively motivated.
Mm-hmm.
I always try to keep everything in the objective reality of what I can see now. But through the experiences that I've been in the last few years, I could feel my gut telling me something, but I chose to ignore it because I've told myself this is objectively what needs to happen. This is objectively the direction that I need to go in. And now I'm kind of like, maybe I should have listened a little bit more. I think I'm gonna start listening a little bit more. And so that's how that relates to that. But it's still relatively new for me because I've resisted it for so long.
I'm glad you're being honest about it because a lot of people resist that quiet voice that guides us inside of us, you know. And then we do other things because it's the thing to do, or it's the right thing to do, or because Uncle Bob said I should go there, or I should talk to the CEO or whatever. But the
Hmm.
quiet voice is like, no, Hadia, go to Hawaii. And believe me, I used to kick and scream, be like, Hawaii, it's where newlyweds go. Why do I want to go there? You know. But I went, and it was the best gift I gave myself, getting off the truck, getting off the train, and getting more quiet and deeper. It was really for my healing, my emotional, mental, spiritual healing. It was
Hmm.
amazing. And I call them my God stories. I have many stories like that. When I listened, I got to where I want to be, not where I needed to be, where I wanted to be. Like my home, I have my home where I live. I wanted to live in Santa Monica. And I was like, how am I going to afford this? It's very expensive. And then I got this job, and this person goes, you know, I like you. Go sign up for this program. And I went, and I got I was telling people I'm going to get an apartment in Santa Monica. Now everybody usually goes, oh, you're going to meet a guy? I'm like, no, I don't do things for men. I do things for me.
It's an added bonus, but that's not the point here.
Exactly. No, I'm not looking for a rich guy to move in with. And I wasn't. And it didn't happen. um, and I found my apartment, and it was in the price range that I could afford. And that was my deal. It's always been my deal with God, i.e., the universe. I'm like, if you want me to do something, make sure the finances show up with it. Not through a guy, but through me.
Yes, yes.
You know, I'm not into pimping myself out. No, thank you. Um, and and it did. And the apartment, I still live there all these years later, and it's what I can financially manage. Like all the traveling I've done, it's what I love traveling. I've traveled quite a bit, and it's within my financial wellness, because that's my deal with my universe. Like I love doing these things, and let's make it happen. And the way it happens is like coming to Hawaii, staying with you guys, you know. And then I found an apartment in Kauai that I was renting one of the rooms $400 in Kauai, and the beach was like down the hill, literally
Mhm.
like 30 seconds walking. um it just, be open to the possibilities, open heart, open mind to receiving what is truly yours. But you have to listen. You got to get quiet and listen, and allow yourself transition time, downtime. Allow yourself your depression. Don't live in it, and know it's just an experience. Allow yourself the anxiety and know that it's just an experience. Allow yourself the overwhelm. It's just an experience and it will pass. And then we come up to the other side and things are good again for a while. And then they go back, just like that.
Yeah. Like a wave.
Yes, exactly. So in wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share, Kris, in wrap up?
I don't know. I feel like that's a really good place to conclude. It's an excellent summary of what we talked about today, emphasizing all the key points.
Yeah. I think maybe someday I'd like to do a podcast on the guidance and my God stories.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, like, share all these different guidance. Like I was guided to go to school, acting school in Pasadena, and I didn't pursue it. It was a lot of money, but I'm like, I just was meant to be there for whatever reason. Okay, so thank you, Kris. Please share with us again what you do, your art, and how people can get in touch with you. Yeah.
Yeah, you can find my art on Instagram at lich_KEELA. And it's all there. That'll link to any of my other stuff if you'd like me to draw something specific for you. I do digital painting and drawing mostly, characters mostly, fantasy and sci-fi. That's what I'm into.
Awesome. I love it. And I want to check in on your Dungeon and Dragon. Did you guys get together yet, or that's gonna happen?
Yeah, that's over. That's done already.
Oh wow.
7 years of work finally off my back. Somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 hours of work on my part over the years.
Wow.
Finally done with. And the first time we've all seen each other in probably like 4 or 5 years as well.
How did that go?
Oh, it was great. It was like being back in college again. It was amazing. That week flew by.
Wow. We have to talk about that next time then.
Okay, maybe we'll make that a topic.
Yeah.
Reconvening with kindred spirits of old, perhaps.
It's important. I call it going back home.
Yeah.
It's important. I reconnected with a friend who I knew, my longest friend that's still friends since I was 19 years old. And we don't talk very often. Like sometimes years go by. But when we connect, it's like there's no time, no space.
Yeah.
And it was just so sweet, and it's so warm and fuzzy to be with a familiar friend who's known you most of your life. And we shared moments of laughter and tears, and it was just so sweet. So coming home is important, reconnecting with the people that love you and you love from your childhood. It's
and
valuable.
That know you.
Exactly.
Know you for you.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I am Hadia. HadiaLoving.com is my webpage. Go sign up for your sessions. I'm here to support you to get your heartfelt dreams, heartfelt life, and to live and thrive and flourish in your life through self-loving, self-caring, self-nurturing, getting to know who you are, your true nature. And I love you. Kris loves you. Love is given. And what we don't like is the pattern. Separate yourself from your patterns. You're not your patterns. Your patterns are just patterns. They're just experiences. And you can change them. You can release them. You can shift them. You are good. All of us are born wonderful, amazing, loving, kind, beautiful, zestful, creative, smart, brilliant, good, free, and joyous. I love you, and I will talk to you later. Bye. Thank you, Kris, for being here. Bye, everybody.
Good to be here. Goodbye.